It's pretty much an indisputable claim that Kobe Bryant is one of the best athletes of all time. Although the 41-year-old was met with an untimely death in January 2020, his Mamba mentality has maintained its legacy not just in the NBA, but for all sorts of people in general. Today, we're gonna take a deep dive into Bryant's iconic symbol, his message to athletes, and exactly why it stuck around for so long. First off, what exactly were the origins of Bryant's nickname Black Mamba? Turns out he coined it himself, as most ideas often do. Kobe's Black Mamba symbol was inspired by pop culture. Film nerds, brace yourselves for this next factoid. Apparently, Quentin Tarantino's cult classic Kill Bill trilogy is where the idea first came up. In the movie, the codename for the world's deadliest assassin, Beatrix Kiddo, is, you guessed it, Black Mamba. What better way to market yourself as a ferocious basketball player than create your own identity around a deadly snake, right? Well, that wasn't the only reason the basketball player decided to give himself the nickname. In 2003, a sexual assault case was filed against Bryant by a 19-year-old hotel employee. The case was eventually dropped as the accuser refused to testify in court, and Bryant maintained that it had been consensual. Nevertheless, it brought him a boatload of negative traction, and he still needed a quick day to dissipate it. It comes the Black Mamba alter ego. It became a way to separate the athlete's court persona from his real-life persona. In an interview with The New Yorker, the NBA player explained, quote, "The name Kobe Bryant evokes such a negative emotion. I said, if I create this alter ego, so now when I play, this is what's coming out of your mouth. You're not watching Bruce Banner, you're watching the Hulk." Just next year, while talking to Ahmed Rashad, he further said, "When I step on that court, I become that. I'm that killer snake. I'm a stone cold man." Now, almost 3 years after he passed, people still recognize him as the Black Mamba of the NBA. Needless to say, the strategy worked just fine. Let's talk about how Kobe came up with the Mamba mentality. Not everyone gets to such heights in their careers as Kobe Bryant did in the American basketball profession, and how does anyone get there? It's all about the mentality, of course. In Bryant's case, it was his embodiment of the Mamba mentality that allowed him to receive the highly contested title of GOAT, greatest of all time, in the NBA. He called it the ultimate mantra when it came to competitive sports. And what was the essence of the Mamba mentality? Focusing on the process, not getting sidetracked, and trusting in your hard work. Sounds simple enough, but it's easier said than done. For Kobe, the Mamba symbolized all that he'd worked for and all that he'd keep working for. What had initially just come as an idea for a hashtag and been embraced by athletes the world over as a solid mindset. In his book, The Mamba Mentality: How I Play, the former Lakers player elaborated on his idea, saying that it was basically about the process, the journey, and the approach rather than the result or outcome. Summing it up simply, the mindset is to constantly push yourself to try and be your best version possible. It's a way of life that urges you to be better today than you were yesterday. It sure is a beautiful message. Bryant spread out the mindset into 5 pillars in his book. These are resilience, fearlessness, relentlessness, obsessiveness, and passion. Now, to you, these may seem like a whole lot of buzzwords, but here we are to detail precisely what Kobe meant by his 5 pillars and why the message is significant to not only athletes but all individuals. Moving on to the Mamba mentality pillars. Number 1, resilience. You can't have multiple accolades and endless accomplishments in any field without garnering a fair share of haters. Kobe Bryant was no stranger to that. His profession as an athlete was obsessively open to all sorts of criticisms, but the star status he acquired during his life led to critics infiltrating his personal life too. He was sometimes seen as selfish on the court and faced a ton of backlash from fans, journalists, and players, and yet his achievements kept piling up one after the other. Resilience, folks. Kobe's first pillar doesn't just talk about being able to withstand harsh and unfair criticism, but also to be able to prove those people wrong. It's about not paying any mind to the intrusive thoughts and doubts that are being thrown your way, and instead focusing on your ultimate goal. We can't argue with that. Kobe's own accolades speak to his resilience and are a source of inspiration to aspiring athletes even today. Pillar number 2, fearlessness, might seem irrelevant to basketball, but it definitely isn't. Bryant described 2 types of fears. One that comes due to doubts and criticisms from the outside, and the other that is self-inflicted. To truly manifest the Mamba mentality, you have to let go of both. How many times have you been scared to speak up or initiate action because you're afraid of embarrassment or looking dumb? Well, Kobe's message was to discard all that BS. When referring to basketball, he wrote in his book that if he ever wanted to implement a change in his playing style, he'd immediately try to incorporate it, contrary to many other players who would rather take this step after weeks of practice. We think it perfectly illustrates Kobe's utter fearlessness in his sport. Every game that would come with its opponents trying to imitate each other, distract from the game, etc., it's only due to the lack of fear of backlash or change and the sheer self-confidence in his abilities that Bryant managed to rise through all of that and achieve all that he did. Moving on to the third pillar, relentlessness. We think this one's pretty self-explanatory. This is probably also the one descriptor that you've heard used for Kobe Bryant over and over and over again. The man never preached what he didn't practice. We'll tell you all that. Someone like Bryant, whose sole goal was to become the greatest in the profession, is of course willing to put in the ludicrous amount of work that comes with that, but the athlete wrote that however big or small your goal in life is, being relentless is one of the key aspects to achieving it. We're gonna trust the 18-time All-Star on this one. Hard work outweighs talent every time. Colby told Amazon Book Review, Mamba Mentality is about 4 a.m. workouts, doing more than the next guy, and then trusting in the work you put in when it's time to perform. Without studying, preparation, and practice, you're leaving the outcome to fate. I don't do fate. There are a lot of sacrifices involved as well. In Kobe's case, he decided he couldn't compromise on his game or his family, so his sleep had to go. So no, being naturally gifted at your craft isn't going to make you the most successful. Relentlessness is where your money is at, people. Almost there, folks. Our next pillar is obsessiveness. While obsession is almost always looked down upon in a negative way, this time it's the opposite. Great intellectuals and academics talk about equilibrium and the importance of maintaining balance in your life, and yet we saw Kobe disregard all of that in his book. But why is that so? First and foremost, the Black Mamba believe that you can't achieve true greatness until you are absolutely obsessed with the end goal. According to him, you only manage to gain outrageous achievements when you have no reservations in your mind. Quote, if you really want to be great at something, you have to truly care about it. If you want to be great in a particular area, you have to obsess over it. Those are his words, and they do ring true. After all, how are you going to excel in a field you don't have 100% motivation to go through with? Because that is the basic essence of obsession. Pure, unadulterated motivation to pursue your goal. Especially if it's an extremely challenging field like sports, you need to have an almost animalistic tunnel vision or else you'll get sidetracked easily. Last but not least, we can't talk about Kobe Bryant and not mention passion. This is the latest pillar of the Mamba mentality and definitely the most variable one, because passion can't be faked or recreated. It's gotta come from within, and if you're truly not passionate about your path, you're simply not as likely to be successful. It doesn't have to be some grand pursuit. It could be a business you're trying to run or a skill you're trying to develop. If you have an innate interest in it, you'll find it easy to excel. Kobe himself loved basketball and essentially devoted his whole life to the game. His love letter to the sport came in the form of the animated short Dear Basketball. Like, come on, there's no doubting his passion for the game, and also no doubting that he was that ultimately led to his massive success. Bryant was taken from us far too early. Rest in peace, but his legacy will surely remain with us for a long time to come. But that's a wrap for this video, my friends. Do you think Bryant's hustle mentality is still applicable, or are people moving away from that mindset recently? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.